Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's dive right in. Very interesting. Let me actually. Yeah, so it's an interesting chart. Every chart's interesting in its own way, but so yeah, you got some interesting karmic signatures here. You're born the same year as me, so a lot of the same configurations outer planet wise. But yeah, so starting, being a Leo, right? Um, a Leo sun on the South Node in Leo. A lot of people with that could you can make the claim of like past life royalty or like, being kind of karmically being used to like a very high position in your, recent incarnation or incarnations. So sometimes, you know, with people that have that, I always tell them like that they can sometimes like I don't want to say the word entitlement, but like imagine if in your past life you were like royalty or something, right? Or just like a star, or like something like just really, really um, widely known or whatever, right? Lots of privilege comes with that, and um, I've noticed that yeah, people with that sometimes they have to kind of face up, and their soul kind of remembers like a easier way, like a life that was easier. It's hard to put into words. Like some been there, done that when it comes to greatness. So you know, but also just sun on the South Node in Leo. You're trying to move away from you're trying to karmically move away from the me to the we. Um, so it's really about just continuing to persist. Um, and with the South Node Sun, it's about just like learning from mistakes and just a lot, really, really allowing yourself to shine, but shining in a way that's for the collective, that's not based on ego in any way, right? Um, so yeah. Um, it's definitely it could even be if it's opposing the North Node, like where like over identification with the ego in past lives could have held you back from and that's not even like in like a narcissistic way. That's like in a way of like just like people overly identify with the ego. Could have been like an amazing like artist or who knows, um someone who's very kind of preoccupied with with building themselves up in whatever way it was. So in this life, the North Node in the eighth house in Aquarius, you're trying to move towards, with your power of fortune right there, um towards community, towards um the collective. Aquarius is about the collective. But moving from the second to eighth is about moving from Taurus to Scorpio, which is moving from maybe being kind of like with the the Leo South Node in the second house, maybe being very much in the material world in the sense of maybe you just had like a lot going on that pushed you away from being able to fully be in this sort of spiritual growth, this like it seems very comfortable, like the energy, right? Like second house, Leo, Sun, South Node, it's very much like, why would you want to leave that, Um, so in this life, I would imagine that you have circumstances that pushed you towards having to make difficult changes. I see your moon opposite Chiron, your sun square Pluto. And these are all just aspects that kind of, especially being a Capricorn moon conjunct Saturn, like that's super karmic, right? And Capricorn moons can sometimes struggle to express vulnerability. It's a highly karmic placement, as I just said. I always say a Capricorn moon, they want to serve, they want to do something with their lives. Like they're very attached to their dharma and to what they're truly building, right? Um, and with your midheaven in Pisces, your career, your big life purpose is around, there's a lot around kind of compassion, spirituality, imagination, dreaminess. Your public, the way you'd be seen by others is in that same way, that Piscean way. Um, and just with Leo in Capricorn, if we kind of take it back to the masculine sun, the core essence of who you are. And then your ascendant's obviously Cancer with Chiron and Venus on it, and Jupiter not far. Leo is, so first of all, like the Cancer Capricorn axis is highly um it's a big part, a big theme here. And that is basically saying that karmically there hasn't been a, a good balance. You're trying to find this balance in this lifetime between Cancer, which is about the internal self, the feminine, um, the inner life, the family life, the home life, all that stuff, right? Kind of like home being a metaphor for that found. It's I made a video about this the other day, right? Like the foundations, right? This is 2 videos ago that I made on my Instagram. And I would definitely watch that if you haven't already, because it's very relevant to your chart. And it's feminine and masculine. So a lot of times people with that, they have switched genders in this incarnation, and sometimes they can feel like a little bit like they don't always like identify so much with their gender, like not like in that kind of way, like just they can sometimes feel like more masculine in certain ways, or like they can maybe in their soul feel like past life past lives as males. I don't know, but I said that to so many people, and they've always been like, yeah, like like a lot of people really resonate with when I said that. So um so Capricorn is about foundations, it's about your dharma, it's about your purpose, it's about your outer life, right? Your um the masculine yeah, it's about masculinity. So trying to balance those two out, it's like one of them is like work-life balance, right? Not putting too much in, like really balancing those two. Feminine masculine balance, right? How much you're able to, like, action versus like kind of like flow, right? Like letting things kind of come to you versus going being a go-getter. um but with that access, there's a lot of tradition. And it's interesting that your North Node's in Aquarius, which is like the anti-tradition. So Capricorn moon with Saturn can be quite difficult, in the sense that a Capricorn moon is here to, what I say, liquefy, because the moon is our emotions. It likes to be liquid, like the Cancer, right? Like water, like flowing. And Capricorn moon ruled by Saturn. Saturn represents rocks, right? So if you think of the emotions as rocks, um, if you think of the emotions as rocks, um, that need to be liquefied, what is the process for that, right? Um, Lots of inner work. a lot of times Capricorn moons, yeah, like when it like they can be quite shy, especially with Saturn. They can be quite they can have self-esteem issues. Like the Saturn on there, like a lot of times their mother was very strict, sometimes like perfectionist, sometimes like lots of hardships around the mother. And you know, it can definitely have like a very grounding effect on the emotions, especially since it's already in Capricorn. So the fact that Saturn's on there, which rules your moon, it just makes it like even more like it's a lot easier to have that than to have like a Leo moon with Saturn on it or Gemini moon, right? So yeah, there is a level of like self-control, realism, but it can also with Capricorn moons, the issue is like kind of like this like melancholy, this somberness, right? Like sadness, loneliness, like kind of a lot of times like the experience, like the early nurturing is like kind of like emotionally cold and distant. Um, you know, usually they've people with that have really had to grow up fast. Um, they've had to grow up fast and they've had to, really just like go through hardships early in life that, you know, kind of sometimes it's like they have to be their parents' parents. And yeah, just a lot of karma around that, around, around whether it's the mom, both parents, just the early nurturing. A lot of times it's the mother. So okay, for Moon and Capricorn, they feel secure when there's a structure in their life, and when they're working hard towards something that they actually value, right? Um, they can become too perfectionist, like and really hard on themselves. That's like one of the things too, is like they can be really hard on themselves, especially if like that was reinforced early on as like, um the unconscious kind of message that you only have value if you perform at a certain standard or if you do this or do that, right? Instead of just like having that. So yeah, they have really, really high expectations for themselves often. And it is a cardinal sign, so it does imply like the need to take action. And really it's just like sometimes cat moons can be like overly serious. Now obviously like the Leo, so you see these two parts are so different. The Leo part is very gregarious, very fun loving, very just the opposite, right? As of Capricorn. Not the opposite, but like a very different. So um yeah, you'll definitely have like these two different parts that you have to figure out how to like work together. And the first thing that comes to me is that Leo is about passion, it's about, you know, courage and the inner child and creativity and laughing and having fun, all that stuff, Uh it's more of a light, there's a lightness to it. And Capricorn, there's a heaviness to it. So I would say like the best way to combine those would be to be able to find things for work, things that like are fun, like that light that Leo fire, um, and being able to kind of structure those things. So it's like almost like having like turning your play, what you do for fun, into your work. Because like Capricorn moons can, like I said, they can work really, really, really hard. Um, and they're very responsible. So they can, yeah, really make the most whatever's at their disposition, their, like whatever is available, like they kind of deal with what they have, and there's a real realism. But sometimes when you have a realism, I was saying in my video today that like sometimes we need to be a little bit delusional in life. Sometimes like to really believe, like if you look at someone like Kobe Bryant, just example, right? He had a mindset like he's the best. Michael Jordan too. Like so, like, yeah, that's delusional, but like then it manifests into actually happening because they held themselves to such high expectations that they wouldn't allow themselves, right, to like not go the maximum, you know? So it's really about like seeing your true potential. Um, so yeah, after the Saturn return, things, have probably gotten a lot easier or a lot less heavy energetically for you. Maybe something very karmic happens during your Saturn return. Um, but a lot of times with Saturnian charts, they tend to, Saturn, everything gets better with age. So the first 30 years are very ruled by fate. Um, and then things, get easier. It could be like something like having to take care of like a parent who's sick or something like that, like during the return, or anything very, very karmic, right? Um, so yeah, there's just this sense of duty with cat moons, right? And they don't want to show weakness, right? Like, because they're looked at by people as the capable one, right? The one the problem solver, the one who can really, be logical. And with like, so when they go through tough times, sometimes they just don't want to burden other people about it, and it can be really hard for them to open up and be like, hey, I'm struggling, right? So, you know emotional connections are not the forte. Not that they're not possible, because you do have, I always say that, you know once you have the awareness, you lean into the polarity, which is the opposite sign, Cancer. And that's about feeling your emotions, being able to like be brave to speak, kind of, you know be vulnerable about them and so forth. And a lot changes when you're able to do that. um and yeah, cat moons a lot of times, like, yeah, they take time to kind of warm up to people. And um but yeah, like a lot, like what I've noticed about cat moons, like they often, like, I feel like the ones I've come across have huge hearts. um but they can kind of like sometimes, maybe it's more male Capricorn moons, because the society kind of pushes them not to talk about their emotions early on. Females I've seen have like a lot better results. Um, but yeah, they're like, they can sometimes just be like really, really, kind of like, not reserved, but just like held back in their emotional expression. And yeah, it's just hard to kind of like let things out, um, accept love. And it really comes from a projection of the self, if and yeah, that early nurturing is so huge. And back to what I was saying about, like, the flow state, right? When you're in a flow state, and you kind of have that like enthusiasm, like anything is possible. Like a lot of times Capricorn moons, like Capricorn Virgo energy can kind of like, they're so observant and so real. But sometimes, like, being overly realistic can be bad. It can be very good in some ways, right? Because you're not gonna like, you know, bet, like, take like, it's more conservative typically. We'll see. But like, at the same time, there is that need to lean into that Leo energy of of fun, love, letting go, just being, But sometimes Capricorn moons can just find it hard to just like let go. Like, it can be like kind of stiff energy. So that's the whole, you know, uh crystallized emotional patterns, right? From past lives that you're trying to undo. And yeah, so a lot of them, like, kind of like value tradition and status, social position. Um, Sometimes I feel like they can care a little bit too much about, not all, but some, can care a little bit too much about what others think about them. Um, so like with your North Node Aquarius, that's about moving into a place where you don't give a fuck about what anyone thinks about you, accepting your inner weird, accepting your inner eccentric, right? Um, But the cool thing about Capricorn Moon is that they're like once they do, and this is what's really good that you have fire in your chart, is that once they do get going on something, and Leo's is very good at becoming passionate about things. They have this follow through, like they're very strong over the long term, and they're very self-sufficient, right? And they're very good at building foundations and structures that stand the test of time. Saturn is time, right? So, but yeah, they can just, like I said, be very, very contained and sometimes build like emotional walls around themselves. But when you're able to kind of like really be honest and share your weaknesses, shortcomings, um, like I said, that's because like what can happen is like they can like cat moons can isolate a lot. Um, like they can take on so much responsibility, and there could be that whole perfectionism thing of like 100 or 0, and if I can't get 100, I just let myself fall down to 0. So like self-compassion is like one of the key things for that. Um, but yeah, um, it can be also, yeah, so the crystallized emotional patterns on any like unconscious fears. It's like really like a moon sign about reprogramming, right? So cat moons are like the ideal people for therapy, not because they're fucked up, but like for self-analysis of some sort. They can really get a lot out of it, right? Um, so the idea of being stuck, right? Like the tendency to get stuck, and kind of like be in this kind of place, right? Where like the fear is more powerful than the fear itself, right? Um, it can create, especially in the first 3 years, a lot of like emotional limitations and restrictions, um, that push that person away from that spontaneous just flow of, emotion. And yeah, emotion is energy in motion, right? So, um, it can really be tough for cat moons to kind of connect with the here and now. And they can be, that access is also about like the past, and about the foundations of the lifetime. So sometimes, yeah, there can be a real stuckness. So that's some of the things. But like I said, your past your Saturn returns, so things, like in time, cat moons find, whatever it is that they really love to do and that really feels good, that like they really feel good doing. And yeah, and then that can be a game changer, especially for you if you're charged with North Node Aquarius, if it's for the collective good, if it's like as a healer of some sort, or who knows what, right? Um, but yeah, when it comes to like revealing like the true feelings, they can kind of keep people at a distance, and lose sight of how much you really do need other people, right? So and they can be really good at nurturing others, but sometimes like when it comes to nurturing themselves, it can be like difficult, right? So like really developing empathy, self-compassion, self-nurture, a kindness to the self, right? Those are like the biggest things, and that is what dissolves those emotional patterns. And it's through mindfulness where you see it come up and you're like, oh, this is that, right? Um, and just pushing yourself towards greater vulnerability and, you know, kind of closeness with other people. So, yeah. And just like being able to let other people in. So, I think that like yeah, it's just all about building those solid, yeah, like like accepting the responsibility and not taking on too much work to where it's like that Capricorn Cancer, like it's really about the balance, because like your inner life and the work you do on like an emotional, spiritual, energetic level it's going to completely be shown in what you're doing, right? So a lot people with this axis, a lot I've seen them a lot as people who like the first part of their life, it's difficulties. They're trying to heal themselves, and then they get really good at it. They develop a lot of empathy, and then they're able to really help other people. But there's a whole array of life where that can kind of show up in. And very, very committed people, um, people you can count on. So let me see one thing. Okay, open the email up. Okay, here it is. Oh, okay. So you did say about like yeah, like making art for the people. That's yeah, I mean that's exactly what I'm talking about, right? Um, like it's not like so you asked like is that enough, right? No, that's beautiful because what you're doing there is you're taking your innate Leo South node, right? You're supposed to use your South node to get to your North node. So you have creative talents, the ability to like for example, like for a lot of Leo South nodes, like myself included, like the idea of being famous or being known or whatever, like it feels like second nature. I'm not saying I'm famous in any way. I'm not at all. But like when you take the opposite, because I've had plenty of clients who are like Aquarius, South Node, North Node, and Leo, like they have like a lot of trouble like accepting praise, you know? So for us, it's like time to give praise. Like we've given, we've received so much praise. And it's not that we can't receive it, it's just that we need to okay. Yeah. So it's yeah. Okay, let me go back to this. So yeah, that's really ideal, right? Because like, and actually it mimics me, and I don't like to talk about myself in readings, but sorry, I'll be right back. You can still hear me. For the purpose of this, um, like whenever in my life I try to do things that were like more ego driven. Actually, hold on, I don't think you can hear me. Let me hear. Okay, now you should be able to hear me. So, like just something like for my life, like whenever I in the past, like when you're in your South Node when you're young, like Leo South Node, like you want to be known, like you feel like you want to do something that you want to be famous, you want to be, this and that, right? You want to have like a public identity. You want to prove yourself on a grand scale. But the frustration can come when you are feeling like your efforts are pushed back, right? And with you, Venus square Saturn, it would make complete sense why, um, that's another Saturn hard aspect, right? Of why like now would be the time for you to really excel at that. Um, so you said so 12. That's so weird. Why is it not? Yeah, so you have exactly the south node I have, south node square Pluto like I have. And you have south node Mars, but it didn't show there. Okay, I got you, got you. Okay, yeah, we can definitely go into that. So those are skip karmic steps. Do I know all about the Pluto one? We'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, basically in essence, with the north node in the eighth, you are trying it's really like about the death rebirth transformation, allowing yourself to kind of we have a little cat here. Hey, hey, little cat break. Hey, Nina, she's so soft. You're like velvet. Give me a kiss. Hey, hey, hey. No. Oh, there's the white one. Come on, Nila. Don't bite her, You guys can both stand me. Stop. No, 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 no. No. Don't bite her. Don't bite her, Ina. No, no, stay. Stop, Ina. You go away. You're mean. Let the white one, Nila, stay. The peaceful Venusian. Yeah, so yeah, that's like the big karmic thing, right? It's that stop biting my stuff, go away. It's that moon, right? And with the fact that North Node in the eighth, in the whole sign, but of course, it would be in, stop biting my wires, or you're locked in my room. Bad girl. Mm, whooshoop. Yeah, so I like to kind of like bounce off class within whole sign. I mean, I use whole sign, but like I like to kind of give both takes. So yeah, like the North Node would, yeah, it would be in the seventh, in Placidus, but just from the whole sign perspective, like it is speaking to, and yeah, and your sun would be in the first. Interesting. So I mean, yeah, I really think it's not. I think that you are really meant to have like a very strong, like you do have a very strong sense of self. Like it's just about directing that energy. Like in past lives, I think that um it's sort of been directed in a way that was a little bit more egocentric. And if I'm trying to think of the right word, just not enough for the collective, right? And it's about still using, like, so like what the astrologer was telling you, like when I make stuff that's just purely for the for the collective, like for the metaphysical value, um, it gets a good response, like I do well. And when I'm very musically talented, um, but like it just felt like whenever I was trying to like go that direction earlier in life, like I would just get blocked, like block, block, block. And I think that's kind of an example of like Leo South Node, right? But anyways, you do have a great creative purpose in this lifetime. You have a fifth house Pluto. So that to me is someone who, really, really on and then like innately since they're young feels like, and you have Venus right on your ascendant, right? So it's like you definitely very, very creative person. And yeah, just like a sense of creative destiny. And it's not about, yeah, so I guess what I'm trying to say is that as long as like it's not like no doing anything for fame or for, you know, being looked at a certain way or being looked at positively. It's not about like being a monk in that sense. It's just like about balance, about balance. And through your creativity, it's about authentic self-expression, right? So like the difference between creating something that's for likes, in today's age, or creating something that's like a pure reflection of your soul and your energy. But yeah, so um I think yeah, there's definitely a need, to really take that deep dive within and kind of when we bring it back to the Pluto square south node, right? This is of everything astrologically that I ever learned for myself. Um, this is the most impactful thing. Um, because when I learned it, I was like, holy fuck! Like the trauma that I have in this life is from past lives. Um, and that Pluto square, the south node is, or the nodes is just like the ultimate um past life trauma indicator. I'll go off in the meditative state for a little bit. But yeah, so like when I heard that, I was like, holy shit, because I showed all the signs of trauma, but it's like, where the fuck does it come from? Like my childhood was not so bad. Like um but yeah, so that's massive. And I think that in a sense, your true creativity was held back. I feel like you could have been someone who was really, really like let's use today's society as an example because I don't know like when or where this was, but like um just like someone who like think of like an artist who's really famous, but they're not really creating like they're not really doing it for like it's not like their creativity is more, you know, commercial or I don't know, nothing wrong with commercial, but you know what I mean? Like it's not like an embodiment of their soul. And yeah, and there's just so many potentials. But so anyways, with the Pluto square, right? When we look at that, we it's the ultimate skip step. And I always look at it as like someone who can come in this lifetime, have like a very chill childhood or whatever. I mean, yeah, you have the and I'll keep talking about the moon and Saturn, but they could have like everything super chill, but then also feel like trauma, and then it's like where the fuck did it come from? It's very confusing. Um, so yeah, it really is like the deepest unconscious self, where like the like kind of like compulsions, like kind of like an even like resistance to like any like resistance to that eighth house transformation, right? Um, just like really like very unconscious things, right? sometimes that we need a mirror for to really understand, which, that could be related to your seventh house having the moon there and Saturn, right? Where you learn a lot about yourself and about your true emotional makeup through, relationships, close one-on-one, usually romantic relationships or partnerships, or even, I think BFF, like really, really close BFF relationships can have that. That's my theory. So, yeah, I think of it as a huge fork in the road, in the karmic road, because it's really this battle between the ego and the desires of the ego and the needs of the soul, right? And it really, on like a deep level, it represents you really coming face to face with deeper unconscious, subconscious forces within you, energies within you. And then it's either you go towards that just deep, so with Pluto, you always gotta surrender. So, and when you surrender, you can allow that death, rebirth, transformation, which, allowing whatever places, people, things in your life that are no longer serving you to go, to fall. Or you kind of can get trapped in, you know, whatever this cycle is, right? A lot of times it's very psychological and very, very compulsive as well. Very compulsive. It can be compulsions, little things we do that we're like, why do I do that? You know? So this is like not bad because it when we don't resist, the evolutionary potential is so massive. Um, but it really does force the person to look at the deepest part of their soul without any, with like just really look at it, right? And I think that also relates to you being cat moon, because I think you're in this lifetime really taking on some strong karma, and you're like, I'm here, I'm ready to like really, really, break. And in your own bloodline, it could be, some type of like generational kind of thing that you're the one to break. Um, so yeah, a lot of times people Pluto square nodes, there's like this theme of power versus powerlessness in different lifetimes. So you see with your Leo South Node Sun, right? That's power. Um, so it's really about getting very honest with yourself about your limitations. Um, which sometimes Leo, and that's like why Leo has to get very honest. Um, and sometimes Leo can kind of overlook those, because it's so positive. Um, and whether it's astrology, psychology, a very powerful relationship with a partner or a teacher or whatever, like these are things that help you transform and gain deeper awareness. Um, so, the people, in places and everything like energetically is bit like kind of like how like who you surround yourself with, all that stuff, like your day-to-day routine, all that. It's very, very important to kind of like have a deep mindfulness to look at that. Um, so yeah. In terms of like how I see it, I think that the word power comes up a lot, as I said before, but like I think sometimes people with this they have to watch out for power tripping. And just in relationships, like there can be like kind of like very karmic relationships with like where the power dynamics are just like very, very set up to kind of like lead the person to be able to kind of grow in this way. Um, but yeah, it is really about like, what is the appropriate use of power? Um, where does it come from? You know? I also look at it as, being lied to or just like a very, very traumatic ending in a certain lifetime, or like, yeah, I think of the word betrayal. Um, and I think people with that can find it very hard to trust. But like when I say betrayal, I don't just mean betrayal, like betrayed by like someone else, right? It could just be like betraying the self. So if there is something that is in your life that just seems like, let's give an example. Let's say like there's a compulsion to smoke cigarettes or drink or do a drug or something like that, right? And just like you can't, and it seems like you just can't get past or something. Not you, just an example. Imagining imagining past lifetimes, you in that same situation and failing. I feel like that to me is like one of the most like powerful things. Like when you're making like a decision like that, right? It can be in any area of life and relationships, all that, right? Imagine like, okay, I've been here before. This is meant to mimic something from past lives, and I fail. So this time I'm gonna do what I have to do to not fail. Um, so yeah. But yeah, it could also be like, betrayal from other people, right? Um, so the person can have almost like I always say, like I entered this lifetime with like a broken heart. Um, so I think that that's just like, a very good, solid relationship could could be very healing in that respect. And it doesn't have to be romantic. Um, friendships that are very solid, work that's really, really helpful. But yeah, yeah. Mm. So yeah, it's really about, yeah, just like figuring out, okay, what do I need? What are my real limitations? What are the real things that, you know, like I'm not like without repressing anything, like what is really at stake here? Like what if I really zoom out and think, okay, what behaviors do I have that, in some energetic way probably have existed in past incarnations? That's the first step, right? That's step one. And then um, figuring out how to overcome them, right? And that's through the deep work. But yeah, awareness is really like huge, that's a huge step. So yeah, it really is like a huge part in the soul's kind of evolution. And it takes a lot of commitment. It can show up in many different ways and takes a lot of commitment, consistency. Um, and it kind of shows that this commitment was lacking. Like I'll give you my example, like not having earth in my chart, like balance is hard. um Consistency, but like just like balance in general is very hard. So I can see how if I'm really committed I can find balance, right? But then it's also about setting your life up in a way that enables that to happen. um yeah, like basically like the big thing with Pluto Square, it's a past life trauma, right? Like however it looks, and that whatever commitment for this thing or these things, um, that was needed or that is needed was lacking, and that's why it's square. So it's really about like honoring, um, the commitments that you made as a soul before coming in this lifetime, and just really gaining this consistency, becoming like as consistent as you can, but not being perfectionist or being too hard on yourself, right? So then, okay, let's talk about Mars. So Mars is in Mars opposite Pluto too. Damn. So yeah, the Mars one is different. That's very interesting to have Pluto and Mars, those two square the nodes. Um, that's more about, I think of it as a lot around like anger, unresolved anger, um, the skip step, karmic step, um, being more around kind of desire and like follow through action. Um, and a lot of times it also could be like where anger, violence even, or so something like that, or just like action or inaction really got in the way um of your highest kind of evolution in past incarnations. So it can be a very hidden anger as well, right? So it just speaks to the importance of being able to kind of, especially with the fact that they're opposing Mars and Pluto, the need for like physical outlets to let that fire and that volcanic energy out, right? Because sometimes people, I just said this to a client lately, although like I was more referring to like Aries, but like I guess you're Leo. I was like, people who have like, but that aspect, I was like, sometimes people with that aspect, um, they'll like smoke weed, like all the shit a lot more fire than you. But like, people who have like a Mars Pluto square opposition and some fire in their chart, like it can be so volcanic, and if they don't have like a real physical outlet to sweat and get it out, like the fire, like it can just be so intense that they'll just like rely on something like weed. Um, so yeah. Um, what else about that one? Um, yeah, like I think Mars, like can also refer to like an unmet need, or an unmet, like you're in, how do I say this? Like you're an unmet need for independence, in past lives, which could have, and just like, which, like kind of like being held back from doing what you really wanted to be doing, which, could have led to some, suppressed anger. Um, but then in relationships, it can play out in an interesting way where, you know, there's that freedom to kind of grow with another, but then also a fear of feeling like entrapped, um, in the relationship, because, it's likely that Mars action, was held back. So maybe you were in a situation where you weren't really able to express your anger and express, and that could have come from that trauma. So in this life, that will show up in that Mars Pluto opposition. And like I said, the fifth house Pluto, that's the need for the creative outlet, right? That's the need for really, really devoting yourself to something, um in terms of your authentic self-expression, like a real sense of destiny, of creative destiny, right? And you find yourself through your creativity. And that's, yeah, like I was saying before, like lifetimes where this development was sidelined, this true development, right? So everything you said about the painting and all that stuff, like that is what you need to follow, because there's that deep drive to kind of like go all in with any kind of creative urges and desires. Um, so yeah, I mean that's massive. And yeah. So then we kind of wrap it back around, right? To where there is like so the Aquarian energy, right? It's like the North Node's there, and then the Mars is there, um, in the 11th. So there is, a lot of push towards really trying to create something of, like create structures, like, join, groups of people that you really just, that get you and you get them on the soul level, and it just kind of works. Like real, yeah, soul family, tribes, and kind of doing things that help push humanity forward, right? So really like looking for the metaphysical value and knowing that it's you do have these innate creative talents, right? So when you're headed in that Aquarian direction, God will align things for you to take care of all you know the other things. And then, second house sun, it's, a lot of the richest people have that. Doesn't necessarily mean that, but it definitely endows someone with, a strong sense of, usually like it's very good for self-esteem, confidence, like kind of like having a strong set of values, um, a sense of groundedness, right? So that's good. And yeah. So okay, let me backtrack a little bit. So yeah, with Leo and Capricorn, you're just trying to, you need to give them both, you need to feed both mouths. So yeah, I think like just being able to really work in a way like I was saying before, working in a way that really makes sense to you, but then also pushes, you know, like lights your fire. It's you love it, you love doing it for the sake of doing it. You could do it, forever, and it also, you're doing it to help people, and it doesn't have to be just your job, it could also be, um, just how you show up in everyday life, right? So hold on. So yeah, I think that creativity is a huge, huge part of this chart, but I think it's, yeah, like I said, it's meant to be done in a way that is different than it's been done in the past. Um, yeah, so just like creativity is like an expression of the kind of divinity within. Um, yeah. Yeah, so because like in past lifetimes, there's definitely like and this is interesting because it's like if that Leo energy was blocked in your childhood, like that Pluto fifth house, Leo sun energy was blocked, in your like, in your childhood via like that Saturnian restriction, right? Like um with your moon. Um, because like people who have this Pluto kind of struggled to express themselves in past lives in the correct way, in the way that now needs to be expressed, right? Um, so from that, like there can be like an exaggerated sense of powerlessness, where they feel like no one cares about their gifts, right? Um, and just feeling like just really, really this desire to be recognized. Um, so yeah. Sometimes Pluto fifth house, like yeah, sometimes it can be like over kind of inflated um ego when it comes to people and their own creativity. Also, that's something I've noticed. Like kind of like inflated self-importance. I'm not saying I do it all, but that's like a tendency, like the low manifestation of the Leo and like all this fifth house and Pluto and all that. It's like um too much of a sense of self, like an unrealistic assessment of the person's work, and like caring too much about how it's seen by others, which that's a very Capricorn moon thing. Um, and yeah, like I was saying, like there's like the subconscious memories of being treated as special, right? Like in past lives. So, that can bring like that kind of like unconscious feeling of expecting that things will kind of be the same um in this life. And if they're not, there can be discomfort. So that's why like with Aquarius, it's like once again, we're moving away from the me to the we, right? And if we're doing things for the we, there's no losing, right? Um, so yeah, it's a really interesting placement. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, so the lowest is just like the needing of that endless feedback from the external world of like how special they are, but the best is like when they can just say, you know what? I'm just gonna do me. I'm gonna create. I'm gonna create for the sake of creating. I'm gonna create for the sake of understanding myself through my creativity, and that's it. Whatever happens, happens. All right. Um. mm, a sip of this. Yeah. So like I would say like with this chart, like um like an unhealed version of this chart could be someone who could be like somewhat narcissistic, but healed is like someone who has duty, someone who is really like um in line with their truth and who's really like gone and done this deep work and who's it's like they have like a way lighter energetic body, like they've overcome a lot and they're able to kind of move into this new like move into their life after that, certain evolutionary point is reached in a way that's very authentic and yeah, and a lot of that with the Capricorn, it's about just like learning to not give a fuck, like learning to just not care. Okay, back to what I was saying earlier. Um, yeah, like I just think that the key with the moon is yeah, like I said, being too hard on yourself, overcoming like, the shyness and you know, opening up to other people, um, trying to get away from, caring too much about other people's opinions of you. And, also just the South Node Leo sometimes can be very like self-involved, as I said. So, um, the fact that it is a South Node in the seventh house in Placidus makes a lot of sense because the moon's there, Saturn's there. So it's like there's a lot of compromise. It's like learning to like compromise and not just like there could be like a tendency to like do everything for the self. But in this life, it's like learning to compromise, right? And in relationships. And it could be like very, very karmic relationships that help you get past all these things that I've been talking about. Um, yeah, so a seventh house moon, you know, like the primary relationships, have like a huge role in the life. It is a potential for like codependency when you have that. Um, it's like not easy for people with seventh house moons usually to be single because they can't hear enough. They tend to get like a lot of their emotional like they're like a lot of their emotional life is based on other. So um there can be like a lot of energy put towards finding a partner. Um so and then they like when they're with someone they can like, have put a lot of energy towards like, pleasing them and which is nothing wrong with that, right? It's just like Aquarius is a sign of, it's about reassessing your priorities, right? And like kind of finding that balance between, Aries Libra, between, full Libra is like, full just like codependency and then full Aries, like I'm not willing to make any compromise for anyone, right? But yeah, um, yeah, it's interesting how that contrasts with the Leo, all the Leo stuff. But okay, so let's move forward. So I think that so Saturn around the descendant, a lot of times that will make it so the most important relationships don't come until after the Saturn return. For seventh house Saturn people, it's not um it's not recommended to get married before the Saturn return, but like if you're able to survive those years, or if you have been married or whatever, then that just shows the strength of the relationship. But people who have seventh house Saturns get married before the return, they have like a lot of issues when it transits over the seventh. Yeah, it can be very, very tough for the return and even through the eighth. So yeah, I think that also I'll talk about that stuff later. Well, so like with relationships, like I think like the Capricorn, yeah, it just takes them a long time to open up, but there can be like, yeah, like that fear of commitment, um, where they can feel very overwhelmed by one-on-one relationships. But like Saturn, that planet of karma and the descendants, like you're here, you're here to learn, you learn a lot through your relationships, Um, Mika, don't you dare jump there. So, okay. Um, Now that first house in Cancer, so interesting. So you have Neptune or Chiron and you have this like Venus right on the ascendant. So that usually makes you a very attractive person with an amazing aura. Um, Someone who wants to be in relationships. A lot of charm and kind of just like a very nice outer personality that people want to be around, and just obviously Venus is creativity and one sec. Mika, don't jump there. Okay, I'll feed you guys, Jesus, but we can't let the small cats steal any. Sorry, one sec. Oh my God, you hear this man? You probably can't hear it. Okay. Uh, Esme, you in here? No, Nila, you're not eating right now. Go, Esme. Felix, Felix, Felix. No, no, Felix. No, you'll eat later. Okay. Yes. Um. Yeah, but one other thing I want to say with Moon and Saturn is that like over time, like when you overcome it all, and like it's one of the best placements for like being a mother. Um, it just gives us like this deep, like innate responsibility, um, and just this energy of like I've overcome so much, and especially if there is like a tough energy with your mother, and sometimes people with that have to create boundaries with their own mother. Um, but like just like that feeling of like having overcome so much and just like feeling the energy get easier and good karmic occurrences coming at the right time. um you know it's just a beautiful thing. Like I said, everything with Saturn gets better with age. Okay, moving forward. Um, yeah, as I was saying, with all the the Venus on the ascendant, with Chiron there too. So Chiron on the ascendant is very interesting. I mean, obviously, like you could be, you're someone who could be, a healer, like your identity, like a healer, but also an artist, like a healer artist, right? Um, but Chiron on the ascendant, it's really good that you have Venus right on there, even closer, because if it's just Chiron, what it can do is it can give someone like kind of like a sad energy. Um, right? Like but it usually does speak to like childhood traumas. Not always like really, really intense, but like um definitely like leaving like an imprint on that person's memory. Um, and sometimes there can be like feelings of like unworthiness, and it could have been like bullying or but the fact that Venus is there, like I said, it's just like one of the best, like it's such an amazing aspect. And yeah, just like so warm, so social, so affectionate, so but yeah, like I said, like it's another one that makes love such an like a huge part of life. That need to love, that need to be loved. But usually it doesn't make it so hard for that person to find people interested. Um, so yeah. Also, yeah, it gives like a strong desire for like luxury and um, you know, just like overall harmony in life, comfort, all that stuff. And it's good for money. Cats, stop it. Um, So yeah, and very good for like being like a decorator, any kind of artist, fashion, stuff like that. But yeah, so with Chiron, also kind of going back to that, a lot of times like they feel like that yeah, like no one like kind of had their back. And like I said, with the Saturn on the moon, on the moon, it could feel like they didn't receive the nurturing they needed, like their emotional needs weren't met when they were younger. Um, but um, you know, like that's the thing with Capricorn moons is that, like they can want someone to like ease their pain and someone to come in and help them, but like they just it's so hard like to say it, you know. Um, and that's the thing with Chiron rising is that like it can kind of like yeah make it difficult to kind of attract people, but with Venus that changes it all. And it can make you like this very healing person um that really cares about what different causes and helping people. um and instead of having like the really difficult just Chiron, you have Venus, that's the closer one. But I think so then I think Chiron with the ascendant, it allows you to almost be this like this kind of spokesperson ambassador for healing, and it definitely speaks to your own kind of healing path of overcoming your traumas and your difficulties, right? So yeah, there's different ways to look at it, but like if you think of the ascendant as like like Chiron, like on ascendant, you could think of it as like wearing your wounds on your sleeves, like kind of like a transparency in that sense, um, that people can kind of see. Um, but then the Venus, it could be like this really like this mix of the two. So yeah. But once again, that one can connect the Capricorn moon because when one with Chiron rising is able to be someone who's able to speak out about their issues and kind of how they overcame it, it can just be so powerful. Um, and then Jupiter in the first house, I mean that's that gives one like like a very large presence, a very large aura. I mean, you have Jupiter and Venus in the first house. You have a very, very like stop biting. Oh, good kitty. He's the double Aries. Crazy. Don't hit me. Oh my God, so close. Okay, not right now. Yeah. So yeah, Jupiter first house in Cancer. Oh, I love yeah, I have Jupiter in Cancer too. So it just gives that real like urge to look after people. Um, I think that like it makes people feel it's a really good placement for Jupiter. Like it makes people feel like the world is their family. Um, and Jupiter in the first and yeah, like very, very connected to their family. Um, like very devoted to their family. A lot of people like want to, create like a large family. Jupiter makes everything bigger. Not me, but yeah, it just like gives you this very optimistic kind of like lots of abundance and this very optimistic um kind of like philosophical outlook on life, this ability to kind of see um you know glass half full type stuff, right? And it's very much about self-growth. um what's actually something for you Mika, yeah, just like personal development. Come on, Mika. Come on, Mika. Yeah, so it definitely like makes like one have like quite a large aura. Um, and um, have to completely Catholic stealing these babies. My God. I'm gonna have you hear this. What? What? Okay, guys. Mika, you're gonna try to steal the kitten's food? See who wins. Good luck beating these crazy cats. Oh my God, guys, chill. You guys are like crackheads. God. Then they like try to like find the wet food if I give them wet food bag in the garbage. Crazy. All right. Yeah. So it's very good for leadership too. Like yeah, just having like a very yeah, like really like just like seeking kind of wisdom and someone who can be a great teacher. And someone, yeah, someone who just attracts a lot of abundance. It's very good for manifestation. Um, and yeah, and confidence as well, right? So like it kind of really does like when you have like the Venus Chiron Jupiter, it's just like, all right, well, um, Chiron isn't and I think Chiron and Jupiter together, it can really expand one's ability to heal. And when Chiron in Cancer, there's pain around the family, right? Like that's usually that's where the pain comes from. But with Jupiter there, it gives one the ability to kind of rise above it and to kind of see the bigger picture in respect to it. So yeah. Um, mm, so yeah, and okay, so with um with respect to your where do I want to go? Okay, so I find that so okay, so with love stuff, right? I think it's interesting, like so Neptune and Uranus, sixth house and Placidus, seventh house and the whole sign. So just like Placidus placements, like that makes it really hard like to be like especially Neptune, it's very very like spirituality and compassion have to play into your everyday life. It can be very very hard to like have like the 9 to 5 kind of just like a life, like it has to have deep meaning, right? um it's really hard for people with that to kind of just like do the kind of corporate you check up how but like yeah, like do like the corporate life, like the um all that stuff. It's very, very hard. Um, but yeah, and then Uranus. So I have sixth house Uranus, also. So and they're retrograde, so it's like you like kind of were held back from experiencing like this like deeper spirituality and this deeper ability to kind of be your own like kind of like Uranian person, like your own individual person, right? That you're trying to move towards with your Aquarius North node. Um, but in the sixth, Uranus, like it's 5:38 a.m. and I'm just working, like that is the all you need to know about Uranus sixth house. It gives very strange, yeah, just weird habits, schedules. The day to day is kind of quite eccentric, but it can still all make sense. It's just like figuring out what works for you. Now, if we take it to the seventh house, it's that same energy, but like very unconventional relationships, right? And a need for freedom within relationships and a potential for like feeling that feeling of entrapment, if relationships are too much, right? Because Capricorn moons, I don't care what anyone says, they need space, like especially when they're not feeling good, like they need to kind of like just chill out and let things kind of like process and yeah, there's a depth to the cat moons, I swear. But yeah, so yeah, Uranus would do that, and Neptune, which is closer to the ascendant, would you know, that can be difficult because it can create like an over idealism, um, where the person can search for like perfection in a partner, the whole Disney like rose-colored glasses thing, ignore red flags, become very disillusioned, with an imperfect partner, and yeah. So at the highest energy, like it's just someone who has to take things slow and really, really be realistic about anything related to love, and at the highest energy, it's related to like very, very romantic relationships, and Uranus relationships where you still keep your own individuality within the relationship, which I think is very, very healthy. I'm gonna pause this. I've been needing to go to the bathroom for the past while. Okay, be right back. Pause. Okay, we are back. Just put eye drops as soon as my allergies be going cray. It's like I'm smoking, which I do not. No, it's water. But yeah, anyways, so yeah, that axis, very interesting. In general. So I think like that, yeah, it's like go back to 2 videos ago that I posted, and just like the idea of foundation, how are you creating foundations in your life? How, do you see the interplay between the solid foundations that you build, the home, the metaphoric home, the home internal home, physical, and what you're able to build, right? They totally play off each other. So aside from that, you know, Cancer rising with Venus, like I said, in all these places, it's very strong. Cancer rising with a Leo, it's in the Cat Moon, it's like the egg. I use the egg metaphor. So like the shell is the rising, the white is the sun, and the yolk is the moon. So Cancer risings, they come off in this very familial way. Like you meet them and you feel like they're part of your family. Um, and the Leo, it's very, I don't really go into sun signs here, but you know how Leo is. Welcoming, gregarious, in the high vibe, low vibe, it's narcissistic and dramatic and all that stuff. Self-involved, self-involved, too much about me, not enough about you know, listening to other people and stuff like that. But yeah, I definitely see a chart as someone who could, be an outstanding teacher in whatever that means, a great guide to people. Um, and even with Pluto in the fifth house, you could look at that as, besides just like that powerful need to like express yourself, and like I was saying before, like Pluto, or I didn't say this, Pluto is obsessive energy too. So it can make one like very obsessed with their creative projects, and in a good way. But also, in the low vibe, it could be like that obsessiveness for attention. So once and like with the Capricorn moon and Saturn, it's like if that's resolved, the person, doesn't need to overcompensate, right? Um, so yeah, like mm, mm, mm. So we didn't even talk about the aspects over here. So yeah, moon opposite Chiron. So we talked. Oh, Chiron was in Cancer. Yeah. Um. So obviously with that, that is usually with the mother. Some pain that's showing up there in that relationship. And oftentimes, the relationships will be a reflection of that pain. So, if resolved, good. If not, not. Um, Sometimes it creates like situations where like the partners will spark your wounds, kind of, or where you might be attracted to partners that need lots of caring, like feel cared for, almost like like a projection of like yeah, like kind of like yeah, mothering them. Um, and the projection is like that it's really the person in that situation who is needing healing. I don't know, but it's really, once again, this is like a common one for healers. It's facing the pain, learning to get through it yourself. A lot of Chiron Cancer people feel misunderstood in their own family. Um, and yeah, just like face the pain and learn to kind of like, balance your needs with the needs of others, right? And yeah, it's any Chiron aspect is obviously linked to healing, and you have it with your Venus, right? So it's like Chiron with Venus is, and with Jupiter, right? So like that is amazing, right? Um, Chiron and Venus, I think it definitely gives one the ability to heal themselves, to really heal themselves in relationships, because Venus is ultimately self-love. So I think that what can happen is that it gives a lot of innocence in relationships, and that can kind of like lead to some heartbreaks, emotional pain, like, or at least make someone vulnerable to that. But Venus and Chiron can definitely, yeah, it kind of, Capricorn Moon also, like, fear, like commitment, fear rejection, um, and yeah, it just brings up the idea of like pain in, the early relationships. Um, but then that leading to you learning how to kind of heal yourself, um, really learn to value yourself. Um, and then it creates someone who has, very, very healing relationships, right? And who's able to see, as a healer, the beauty and the potential in people, uh, in all people, the the people cast aside by others, the people, like, just in anyone, being able to see their potential, have unconditional love. Um, so yeah, and like really, yeah, like I said, like have very healing relationships. So I already kind of spoke on the Jupiter, Chiron. Um, yeah, I mean, it just makes that, yeah, it's really also about trusting your own wisdom as a healer, as a healer archetype, right? And trusting that, like the wisdom you've gained, like really it's about incorporating like your pain with your philosophies, and the ability to do that, which, once again, like it could be like someone who's able to really, Cancer emotions, heal people through their emotions. And the fact that it's on your ascendant means that, with the Venus, that you have like this warm energy, and this energy of this compassionate energy, and then this very expansive energy. So it's like a lot, but it's really, really able to help people um, feel comfortable. So then, okay, Pluto opposite Mars and trine Venus and square Sun. So Pluto square Sun, what a big one. So that's, with that's the biggest. I mean, that with the other one with Mars, your two, and Venus opposite Saturn. Um, so yeah, Sun square Pluto. Oftentimes that's like just I always bring it back to the idea of the ego being challenged, and like crises, usually early on in life. Um, a lot of times someone who can have like trouble controlling their emotions. And they're very, very powerful, and um, very, very powerful. But it all goes back to how much work one has done around power, around the idea of power. Um, if one is, you know, like I always say with Scorpio, right? It's like if someone is kind of pushing away the healing, um, then and more in their like defense mechanisms, then and trying to control and all that, and hasn't healed the wounds, then it's horrible. But a lot of times it does, you know, kind of allude to a childhood in which you know, there was some definite trauma, which interestingly, if we look at it closer, you know, the fact that, yeah, like, I mean, it's like this is literally mimicking your past life trauma, right? So it's interesting because um it's square, you know, Pluto squares the sun and the south node. So it could be through the relationship with the father, or it could be through just the overall experience of evolution in this lifetime for you. In, you know, whether it is the early family relationships or just like just your overall nature that's reflecting this past life pain. So the pain that you've had, like usually it's a lot of ego conflicts, right? Like I told you before, it's ego versus soul. When you lean into soul, that's how Pluto is integrated. Um, but a lot of times psychologically with this, yeah, it's about control, and like people with this a lot of times, like I knew a kid in high school, is my friend. He was the biggest control freak. Later, I learned that he had this aspect, and I think his moon was opposite Pluto or something like that. But yeah, just like obsessed with control. Um, so that was like an unintegrated, right? And yeah, power struggles as well, oftentimes early on. And yeah, just mixed relationships kind of you know, like Sun square Pluto is just like this need to transform yourself, you know, to let go and surrender and go through the death rebirth transformation, which is your eighth house North Node too. Um, but and it's kind of like, you know, with the moon, the sun, Pluto, um, it's like a express train, you know, to higher consciousness, because you go through a lot early on in life, and then, you know, before you're very old, you're very wise and you're very able to do a lot of things. Um, so yeah, the big thing is like learning to let things go. You know, some people, this can like be very overly dominant. So it's like it's all about getting to a more like it's all about getting to, I guess, transitioning into a way of existing that's more relaxed, where you feel the energy. And yeah, it can be intense, especially with the Mars opposition, because if we actually look at this, you know, as a T-square that shoots out in Aquarius, right? With Sun or Pluto, Mars, Pluto, Sun, um, in the eighth house, like that's the resolution is Aquarius eighth house. So that's showing us that by being selfless, by truly going into our depths, our darkness, right? Our own personal underworld, that's how we heal. And that's how all of this really intense Plutonian volcanic energy gets made into something, you know, as I said that aspects get transformed into assets, right? And that's just someone who has massive determination, who's the leader. Um, so, you know, yeah, just someone who has this never give up energy, who is just like so resilient, all these things. So yeah, it really is, the rebirth is also, yeah, just like, yeah, sacrificing the need to control situations, other people. Um, but it is like really good for like channeling that intensity into like hard work and determination and in terms of and it makes someone very ambitious, but it's the good, like, just like, like not being so concerned with like feeding everyone, and like being like just chilling, like that's the high energy. And like everything I'm saying here, like I would say the same if you were 18, if you're, 25, whatever, so it's like if you've gotten to the higher energies of the things I'm saying, like, which I feel intuitively like you have, like, that's amazing. um so yeah, it's like staying ambitious but not needing to like just like beat everyone, and prove and feel like you have to prove yourself. Um, and when people with this like don't let go, like that's when they, you know, like crises do happen. But it's something that, yeah, can be fixed internally. Um, and also, Pluto has to do with like kind of taboos, whether it's sexually, or whatever, the occult, and kind of like the underworld, like these types of things. So like, yeah, those things are dangerous, but they do kind of help promote that transformation. I'm not saying like get addicted to anything or like do anything sexual, but definitely like, a lot of people who have that are kind of pulled towards like the eighth house depth. Yeah. So you see what I'm saying about the T square, how it resolves in the eighth house? It's just perfect, right? Um, it's just, and your part of fortune's right there too. So, it really does speak to just how, this is a very Plutonian chart too, you know. So just always remember ego versus soul, metaphysical value versus physical value. Um, okay. So then, with Mars opposite Pluto, I should look at that one next. Well, you have Venus trine Pluto. That is, trine is a positive aspect, obviously. So that just makes someone like really like able to enjoy commitment and personal relationships. They can have very transformative relationships, and loyalty, and also when it comes to creativity and art and even money, like, um, lots of determination in those, and able to, like, when it comes to relationships, like make the necessary changes demanded, like, so it's good for compromise. um and yeah, Venus opposite, or Mars opposite Pluto is like, it doesn't get more volcanic than that. Then it just like, just such strong feelings. It can even like attract violence. Like there's, people have spoken about that being linked to, like, not like like I'm not saying that everyone has this, but I was reading a book a while ago that was speaking about how, cat's out of here. Sorry, one sec. I know there's a cat in here. Yeah, it was talking about how, these aspects with Mars and Pluto, they can like sometimes be linked to, sexual trauma. Like it's not like it's an all the time thing, but it gives sort of a risk of that. Um, so yeah, it's really like there's just such an intense energy inside, and if they're and because the Mars is square the nodes, it's like that past, and Pluto square the nodes, it's like this is like such a karmic energy. So this aspect is probably the most important in your chart. So you need to find that expression, right? So physical and or creative outlets. And people with this, yeah, this is this is like the aspect of conflict, right? Um, and usually when younger, there's the clashes, but like anything, like, so because oppositions are more external. Um, and what can happen is the person can feel kind of they can kind of self-victimize, or like kind of feel like a victim. Um, but it's like the most competitive at like that, like Mars, Pluto, like it doesn't get more competitive than that, right? Um, so it's like you want to win so bad, right? That like your self-esteem can be affected if you don't live to like the high like Cat Moon expectations, right? Uh, especially yeah, I'd be surprised if you didn't do sports growing up. Um, but yeah, it can also come from like a dominating or like abusive parent, right? So like the whole victimization, like it's not like it could be like really being a victim, Um, and and it's with Pluto, Mars is often a man, right? So and it can continue into adulthood. So it's really, really about understanding your role in any of these dynamics. Um, even if we're the ones who are the victim, it's like we still have to look, okay, like how did I get myself in a situation? Like what role am I playing? Like what am I doing? Um, but yeah, just like create someone who's like very, very firm and kind of straightforward, says it how it is. Intense energy, like that real like fighting spirit. So yeah, the fact that Pluto gives us the ability to kind of transmute and transform all that stuff, right? Like the best thing you can possibly do with it, yeah, is combine the two, right? And uses that chip on your shoulder to kind of have that, like, because Pluto is like this real single-minded determination, obsession, and Mars is that raw power, right? So it really is asking you to look at kind of what I was talking about earlier, like the intense kind of like desires and compulsions and whatnot, and understand where they come from. It's all from trial and error too. So like if there is, let me get Esme out of my room because she wanted to. Betty, just get off my bed. Esme, you get way off my bed. She peed and pooed on my bed. Not recently, but a few weeks ago. Mika, you're allowed. Hey, white cat, come on. Unless you want to stay with Mika. Mm, come on. Sorry, these cats. Guys, get out, Betty. Get out. Betty, out. Go. Bad kitty. Play with this toy. Go. Okay. So, yeah, what was I saying? Like, I think with this, it's like, especially the Leo, it's like really looking, and this is the thing, you lack air in your chart. So when you lack air, it can be difficult for you to see how you and like how you're like seeing other people's perspectives. So like being able to look like really work on like, so actually when you lack air, doing breath work is really, really an amazing thing, and just getting oxygen. But yeah, just looking at like how your behavior impacts other people, like look with respect to this. I'm not saying like I could totally see you having figured this out already. I'm just saying this is how you the best way to heal this. So like looking at like how it appears to other people, um, and it's just like really important not to take any shame, especially with a chart like yours, like in the first 30 years, to not hang on to any shame, because like all the stuff was so fated, you know, like with a chart like that, it's like you were meant to go through what you're meant to go through. And then it's like, think of like your life really starts after the Saturn return, you know? So yeah, also this is like a super sexual one. Like people with this are like very, very sexual. And especially Mars and Taurus. Taurus is a very sensual sign as well. Um, so yeah. It's like important to not allow kind of like some like not using any like abusing using any tactic that could be related to like controlling others through like this kind of magnetism that this aspect brings. Um and just like thinking of like the karmic responsibility, right? So yeah, and this is another one that like, like so many, famous people have. So they transform that raw Pluto, that raw Mars energy into something creative or, you know, just into something that's valued, right? Um, so yeah, it's like recognizing your personal power, and then it's amazing, right? But make sure you're not abusing it is very important. Um, okay, so here, so Neptune trine, Mercury, amazing. That just is very intuitive, potentially psychic abilities. So meditations would be very interesting. And then your Mercury obviously is in, I said obviously, where is it? It's in Virgo, right? So it's in its dignity placement in the third house. So that's very good for intelligence. And because yeah, very discriminating mind. Good at analyzing, but like you have to watch out for being overly critical, and yeah, it can be like the only thing that like it's very good for intelligence and getting things done, but um you know also like Mercury Virgos, they like to be very precise in their communication, like um you know uh, but the thing that's really important is that there can be like a potential for rumination, and it kind of goes with like the cat and moon um potential for self-criticism. So yeah, just like understand that Virgo is a mutable earth sign, so it's very misunderstood. And yeah, it can also go with the flow, even though people think it's like all OCD. And in the third house, it is so yeah, and the fact that it has that trine with wait, hold up. It has a trine with Neptune and Uranus and Mars. So your Mercury is super well aspected. So it's in its dignity in the third house. So it's in like the domicile house. It's in the dignity placement. So it was such a strong Mercury. Um, and so yeah, the third house, it just makes someone like just really excel at communication and very good for yeah, just like a quick learner. Um, good at studying and learning things quickly. Stop getting. Oh my God. And yeah, and then the fact that it trines Uranus, like you have no idea. That's like a genius placement. Um, like it's someone who thinks outside the box. So you can be very analytical, but then you can also think outside the box and have like very original thoughts and ideas. Um, and you're able to kind of communicate them with ease, not in a way that like bothers other people. And yeah, just very, very ahead of your time. Um, but then that also could lead itself to like being misunderstood by your family early on, right? So the Mercury with Neptune, it's just like the merging of like the mercurial Virgo energy, right, which is very type A, with the abstract. So it's like right brain and left brain, right? And Mercury, Uranus also, they can be very like fast talkers. Definitely. And yeah, with Neptune, they, like Mercury, Uranus can get downloads also. Like if you can calm down that mind and silence it, you can get these like strikes of downloads and like potential for clairvoyance, right? So yeah, with Neptune, yeah, just like you're able to express your imagination and tell amazing stories and speak in a way that's very like kind of almost intoxicating, like I think yeah, um it's very magical. And if you were a writer, it would be like amazing, or a poet or anything like that. Because like, you have you have the Virgo, which is like the facts and the data and the more technical side, and then this more creative side, right? So yeah, and with Neptune, like that's like good for being like a good for negotiating. Obviously very good for spirituality, but yeah, being good at seeing like the bigger picture, um, and having a very creative mind, and if you're not psychic, at least being very, very, very like good intuitively, right? Being able to really pick up on like the energy and the environment, all that stuff, wherever you're at. Um, and then yeah, so with Uranus, it's yeah, just like I think I've said everything, right? Um, mm, yeah, it can be yeah, very like I think I said very fast talking and kind of impulsive also with the talking. Sometimes it can like lack concentration, but because it's a trine, it's not something that it's something that can be corrected easier than if it's a square and it doesn't piss people off like that. Um, and you can go off on tangents most likely. Um, but then through those, you can have like these sparks, these Uranian sparks. You're like, wow, holy fuck. So yeah, it's like the puzzle solver, like someone who like yeah, that's a cool one. Puzzle solver, right? Kind of put things together. Um, so yeah. A lot of people with Mercury trine Uranus, like they can have like uh careers through the internet or through some kind of technology, like very, very inventive. Um, So yeah, it's also very creative and good for astrology, amazing for astrology or any occult field, right? Because Uranus, is about the future and Mercury is the mind, the trine, yeah, it can create someone who can be clairvoyant potentially. Um, so yeah, Mars, also transit Neptune. That's just like amazing creativity and ability to inspire others. Um, just Mars trine Neptune, people are able to, they really want to like fight for a cause they believe in. So it goes well with your North Node, but like in a non kind of threatening way, right? It's more of like an idealistic type of pursuit. What, Kitty? What else can I say that one? Yeah, it's just like wanting to fight for the underdog. Um, mm, good for attraction too. It kind of creates like a mysterious yeah, kind of like yeah, this mystique. Um, good for popularity. Yeah, it's just yeah, it's just like a nice energy. Um, very compassionate. Mars trine Saturn is very good for discipline with your action. It's linked to like courage. It's linked to, just being able to like, I'm starting this and I'm following through, right? Like dedication and endurance. So it could be really good for like endurance sports too. And it's very good for like the physical body. Usually it's like well proportioned and attractive, muscular, whatever you want it to be. Yeah, so yeah, it creates like a leadership qualities, someone who says what they do and does what they say, you know? So yeah, hardworking for sure. And I would say it's like it's yeah, very good leadership one. Um, because it's someone who can like take calculated risks. Um, okay, where are we at? Yeah, like Venus. Did I talk about Venus, Jupiter? Is that two people in a row that have had that? No, I talked about yours. I did, right? On my trip, and then the reading I just did had this too, because that happens all the time. Yep, hers did too. So like literally, it's insane. The other day I did a Scorpio Sun, Gemini Moon, Cap Rising, and then guess what my next reading was? And then Mars and Libra. All four are exactly the same. Like this stuff happens like all the time. Um, okay, so yeah. As I was saying, with love, you need to open up. Um, but you really want to like have someone you can really rely on. It is very, very important. Pluto is, conjunct Juno, so I have that too in Scorpio. So it just makes you really want loyalty, like in terms of a partner, like really, really wanting loyalty and depth and someone who's able to transform with you and go to those places. But then also Mars and Taurus is like that sensuality. So it's very soulmatey energy with that. And then even Venus in Cancer is, very, values family. So it's definitely someone who, yeah, so this is like the chart of someone whose love language is most likely very close, right? Lots of closeness, the opposite of me. But then like with the Capricorn, it can still, like the thing with your Aquarius North Node is that you have to like in relationships keep your own individuality. You can't just like let go of that. And then you do have Moon opposite Venus too. So that's like a conflict between your needs and the needs of others. Like with relationships, it can um, be difficult to find that balance between your emotional needs and the needs that your relationship has. So it's just like finding the balance between giving and taking in relationships is really important. Um, let's see. And you have Sun square Mars too, so that's you have like that's like and like someone with that is like accident prone. Um, Sometimes there can be like outbursts. That's really important. Like once again, this is another one like 'cause, I said you have like the T square, right? So this is part of the T square with Pluto, Mars, Sun. So that is all linked to the inner work you do. And yeah, like just it can come off as being like pushy. Um, but once again, like, it takes someone with these aspects to really look at themselves and like really get that third party kind of like um, you know, objective viewpoint. So um yeah, so then the Mercury is also trine Mars, and that is just good for intelligence, able to like crisp, what the fuck am I saying? Able to like yeah, just like yeah, very, very, very fast mind, able to grasp ideas quickly, able to move towards your ideas. Like yeah, like kind of what I was saying before, like you say it and then you do it, right? Um, and it's very good for communicating and usually, good at being direct with communication as well. Um, okay, so yeah, so I was saying Venus with Jupiter, that's just like one of the best aspects in astrology. Um, and they're both in Cancer, but they're 8 degrees away. But still, yeah. I mean, overall, like when you have those two together, it's just very, very. It makes someone just very generous, very popular, very fun-loving. They attract abundance in their life, manifestation. They are, it's the two best planets coming together. So they're happy go lucky. It's just such a good. It's just such a bright Leo kind of aspect. But with that, and then with your moon squared opposite Jupiter, you have to watch out for not being overly indulgent and taking too many risks. But being a Capricorn moon, I would say that would be, that would help you not do that. It's pretty conservative. So yeah, Mars and Taurus didn't like go that deep into it, but yeah, kind of like a reliable course of action to get to where you want to get. It can be a little bit stubborn if it's opposed. It can, but yes, like I said, so many successful people have it. It's great for success financially. They like, yeah, like they like to like kind of to do things in their own way, in their own way that they know they can count on. Maybe yes, so yeah, and yeah, I talked about the 11th house Mars, just like that will to create connections and make friends and yeah. Um, mm, 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 mm. So definitely a high level of sensuality. Um, so yeah, Venus opposite. Well, yeah, Venus opposite is the last one we'll talk about. Um, Saturn. Um, that's another one that just like you have Saturn your ascendant, Venus opposite Saturn kind of doubles down on that. It's not an easy one. It definitely makes it so one has to really learn self-love. It can make one quite lonely. Um, you know, they have to really, really like work hard to form loving relationships. And it can create like kind of like issues with social skills, and just trouble with self-esteem. But then having that second house Leo sun, I feel like would help so much. Everything in your chart is based on the work you do. Like seriously, like that eighth house work is like everything, and what you get back. Um, yeah, this one a lot of times creates like guilt or shame early on. Usually there's like a lack of affection by parents or over criticism and yeah, just like kind of like negative conditioning, like it can even be like abuse. So yeah, one with that can really have had early conditioning that made them believe that they didn't deserve love, right? So it's very, very difficult for to have that. So yeah. Like and it just comes through like learning that you're a good person and it's this big theme in your chart about loving yourself, right? This is Capricorn moon, Venus opposite Saturn, um, Venus opposite moon also. So, like removing guilt, self pity, shame, all that, forgiving yourself for everything, you know? Like I said before, first 30 years, it's all your life is trial and error. Um, so yeah, a lot of times people with like cards like this, like they're usually late bloomers. If you're not, that's you're fucking badass. You are anyways. Um, but yeah, this is like about self-love. So people with this usually are pretty hard on themselves. So it's just another clue of that theme. And this one could be like a inferiority complex, not feeling like they deserve what the good things that come to them. And it's all about loving the self, um, convincing yourself that you deserve love, and um, you know, it makes one work really, really hard. But once they get there, Venus and Saturn together is relationships. Venus and Saturn is the glue that holds relationships together. And like I do compatibility readings. Um, so like in synastry aspects, like that's what that is. So it's actually good. And someone who can really like learn to love and value themselves, but it's just like, you know, with age comes that satisfaction and that self-respect and learning those lessons. But yeah, usually there are lots of delays with romantic love. I mean, obviously it depends like on how hard you worked or whatever. But yeah, and it's also really related to money. So it can make the first 30 years like really difficult or difficult and like things kind of in your way when it comes to money. So one really great way to work with this is mantras, just reprogramming your brain, affirmations, stuff like that. Um, yeah, doing things to make you feel good, working out, huge one that I keep saying. So yeah, all right, what else we got? Let's plug this in. And like I said, part of fortunes with North Node. So yeah, for you, freedom equals that's like you're in your flow when when you're free and um, when you're not conforming, and when you're eighth house, when you're surrendering your personal ego, as I said a million times, and going towards that death or allowing the death rebirth transformation to happen, and having strong boundaries with people who aren't meant to be part of the next evolution of you. Oh yeah, okay. So Vesta is in the 11th in Taurus, so that's someone who can like work very persistently. Um, yeah, very good worker, and yeah, someone who can definitely work in groups. And yeah, who's idealistic and it's like in a grounded way. And yeah, like it's all about like defining your visions, your grand visions. Like I said, midheaven and Pisces, you want to serve humanity through your career. Because it's immutable midheaven, there could be career changes. Um, Sometimes people with that can feel overwhelmed by their career and by their all that stuff. Their career choices. Okay, Black Moon Lilith, I didn't talk about that. God, I'm going oh my god, so long. Black Moon Lilith and Vertex together. So Vertex sixth house, your doorway to higher awareness is through service, and Sagittarius is a sign, so it's through wisdom. Like through the more like whether it's different cultures, like this, like travel. I say traveling physically or traveling metaphorically. The more that you can like say, and this goes with Black Moon Lilith, the more you can wake up and say, I know nothing. I know nothing. I'm ready to be proven wrong for whatever. Like that's the best. And the Black Moon Lilith, in the sixth, that can make like if you're like working with people, um, people at your job, if you work a job, can be jealous of you. Um, and there can be issues with them. Um, what are you cats doing? Um, and yeah, it can kind of create like some dark energy at work, you know, in the day to day, like organizing your kind of day to day schedule, and kind of like like going overboard with how much you give yourself, putting too much on your plate. So it's really like about having boundaries with like, you know, like how much work you're doing, you know, and not putting and being able to tell people like, hey, like I like um you know, that's too much work, or however you say it. So yeah, it's really important to understand like the psychosomatic energy of and overworking, how it's showing your chart, you know, that like, you know, that's not what you need to feel, you know, to be worthy of anything. So yeah, and then Black Moon Lilith in Sag, I think like that just speaks about like the potential, like that's kind of like your dark side where you have to kind of like look at it. So that's like to me about just throwing yourself into like lots of new ventures. It's kind of like with the Jupiter aspects, but also yeah, it just requires a lot of restraint. Um, what are you doing? Come here. Yeah, so it requires a lot of restraint, and also it can be like trying to throw your worldviews and opinions on other people. But remember, this is just you like Black Moon is just like us at our lowest vibration. It's not a planet. Um, so yeah. Um, it can also make one kind of like reckless in pursuit of their own goals. So yeah, just like learning to kind of like reel it in and be balanced, not out of control and not yeah. And just also understanding that everyone, you know, comes to their own truth at their own time. So yeah, I think there can be a fear of meaninglessness also, a fear of being deceived, um, like a fear of like not finding like the overall truth, you know? And there can be like issues around like the you know what life means and spiritual truth, right? Like endless questioning, um, you know, if we're being truthful, if others are, if we're being truthful to ourselves, if life is truthful, like kind of existential, right? But like the integration comes from when you just stop questioning everything, because like Virgo Mercury can kind of do that, and you just start believing and feeling, right? Like, you know, like what is really important and meaningful to you, right? Like narrowing down that need for truth to what really actually matters, and then creating your own personal truth based off of that. But I think it's really just like, yeah, it's about yeah, I really resonate with the part like when with Black Widow in Sag about not about the desire, like just the need to like allow other people to come to their own truth. Even if like let's say you found this amazing thing like astrology, um, and you want your sister, your brother, or whoever to know about it, but they're not ready. Like sometimes that can happen. But you don't, yeah, you don't have like Sag energy, but yeah, that's just something. All right, let's just finish this up. This is my longest reading in a minute. One of my longest, like, I want to say ever. Okay. Oh yeah, and then you have Sirius and Leo too. So, yeah, just like feeling cared for when you're in your inner child. You know, when you're able to be in your inner child around people, and when you are, um, you know, when other people are in their inner child and like make you laugh and kind of with creativity, open that up for you too. So yeah. Okay, let's look for anything. Okay, so here's one. Castor rising. So White Moon Selena on Jupiter. So that really means that you are spiritually protected. You have Urania on close to Jupiter. So that means you could be an astrologer. I teach astrology 101 if you're ever interested. I have like courses. Um, I do it 101, but like Jupiter expands. So, it could be something that, yeah, like it's interesting how I've been seeing Uranian in the charts of a lot of my clients. And yeah, lots of spiritual protection around yourself. I think on the sun. Aphrodite on Mercury, so you probably communicate in a very like eloquent and soothing manner. The nebula on your IC, truth seeker, occult truth seeker. Okay, nothing there, nothing there, nothing there, there. Okay, so just about done. So it was. Wish you could see what I'm looking at. It's like so many. I'll share it for just a second, just so you can see, and try to imagine how the fuck does he like tell which one's which. Okay. So, anyways, so was it midheaven? Yeah. Um, I give you such a like thorough breakdown. Like, holy fuck. I think I like went into like deep detail because I've been like really like lately. I've been kind of like not challenging myself, but like I've been saying more about different placements because like let's say like your Mercury trine Uranus. Like another reading, I may have just said like two sentences about it. But now I'm like, it's almost like I don't want to call it practicing, but I'm almost trying to go deeper. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm like, okay, how much can I say about this placement? And then I have like notes also from like, a long time ago. I barely look at them, but I'll look at them for like little reminders or just like things because like, time goes and I don't know. I don't want to like forget anything. Um, that's important because there's just so much information I have to know. Okay. Um, let's see if there's anything here. So yeah, Mark Midheaven just changeable in business, which I already talked about. So yeah. Okay, so this one, last one. So Castor is the star that you have rising in conjunct Venus and Chiron, I guess. So mm, because distinction and keen intellect, success in law, and many travels, honors for horses, sun, fame, and honor can come, but often followed by loss of fortune, blah, blah. Mercury, it's the nature of Mercury. Okay. Okay, so let's just see what it says with ascendant. Honor, intellect, great learning, blindness, bad eyes, injuries to the face, disgrace. Okay, these are all like retarded, like old. Sorry for that word. These are all just like really stupid, like old. Okay, let's see what this one says. In a splendid, illustrious life, glorious, mighty, in commanding nature, fame, busy with many activities, bountiful resources, well known. That one they say all the time, but I'm gonna look at my book and then we'll be done. So with Venus, many extreme ups and downs, a strange and peculiar life. It says, okay, that ignore that last one. It says, this one says, it can make them overly parental in relationships, whether they're business, family, friendships, or their marriage partner. They are continually tempting to mother everyone, which I said something about that before. Making sure they're all wearing warm clothes in cold weather and have some hot soup to eat. This is extremely overdone, but it's not really harmful. It can become overbearing, however. But yeah, the Venus one wasn't as close. Like these have to be like smack on. Oh, I literally landed right on the page, opened it up. Okay, let's see what it says in my book. So, okay. So, okay. It's not really giving me much. Oh, oh, I see. Okay, so you're born at the ninth. Okay. It says very good for memory and are capable of teaching and are pure in their desires and wise. All right. Okay, my longest reading in ages. I hope you enjoyed. Have fun taking, no, actually, yeah, most people, especially with when I went this deep, like, I have to watch it several times. But I hope you enjoy. I went all the fuck out. So, wait, hold on. Also, Chiron and Venus are trying the midheaven. I just want to like add that in there. So, yeah, healer, artist for your career, like, especially in Pisces, like, totally see it for either one. All right, we'll end it there. Thank you so much. And 2 hours, 30 minutes. All right.